Grow 10 times by employing a coach. In this episode, I'm going to address the question, should I invest in a professional coach? I have actually coached many entrepreneurs in my career. I have invested north of $3 million in my lifetime, sharpening my saw, as Stephen Covey would say, and I continue to invest $250,000 a year with coaches. I don't know what I would do without professional coaches and mentors, and I also receive tremendous rewards when I help others 10 times their business practice by employing the same dynamic lessons and principles that I have been blessed to learn. So hang on, I'm going to show you the power behind having a professional coach. So my name's Doug Andrew, and I've actually coached over 5,000 entrepreneurs, business owners, how to take their professional practice, no matter what they do, be it a dentist, a doctor, a chiropractor, maybe a realtor, a CPA, a tax attorney, any type of a business owner, how to 10 times their business, their practice in 60 months or less while simplifying their life. I'm writing a book called 10 Keys to a Meaningful Transformation to the top of your industry and beyond, because this is the keynote address that I have given for years at professional conferences. And I always get a standing ovation when I share these, because this is actually the sum total of what I've personally invested north of $3 million in my lifetime to learn. I've learned way more than 10, but these are the 10 top game-changing keys, and my audiences usually get a big scorecard like this, 11 by 17 on cardstock. And there's 10 keys outlined here. This particular episode is about key number 8. But I encourage you, as subscribers of my channel do, to view all the videos of all the 10 keys and how they can relate and help you simplify your business while 10 timesing your income, your profitability. So key number 8 down here is use professional coaches and mentors and form strategic alliances. You'll notice this is color-coded. This is from poor, fair, good, better, best. It's a scorecard. So every time I teach, I actually have my audience score themselves on a scale of 1 to 10 on every one of these principles. So on this one, let's just go through these sentences and see where you fit on a scale of 1 to 10. A score of 1 or 2, this would be poor, would be you do things on your own. You don't think that you need coaching or that you can afford a mentor. Okay, that would be a 1 or 2. A coach or a mentor doesn't cost you. It's an investment, okay? They are an investment. They make you money. They don't cost you money. Next would be, you know how to tell your story, and no one understands better than you how to be productive. If that's your mindset, that's still pretty poor. That may be fair, okay? How about you understand the dangers that you need to eliminate for your clients, your customers, your patients, the opportunities to seize, and the strengths to harness, okay? Now you're getting there. You maybe have learned that the hard way. It took you a while. You didn't need a coach, but now you're floundering. You've hit a ceiling of complexity. How about a better, okay? You attract plenty of opportunities using high concepts coupled with high touch. I'm going to tell you why that concept alone has doubled most business owners' opportunities. But what's best? You know that coaches, mentors, and alliances are an investment, not a cost, for exponential 10 times growth. When you finally realize that every dollar you invest in a coach or in a mentor gives you a 10 times return on your money, why wouldn't you invest in somebody helping you? And so that's the scorecard. So let me tell you why I am so adamant and so passionate about helping you understand something that I put off for several years. I put off having a coach, and finally I went, this is costing me money, not making me money. And as soon as I employed a coach, I 10 times my business in less than 5 years. The next 5 years, I 10 times it again. I want you to experience the same success that I have. So during the last 20 years in particular, I have employed several coaches. I belong to several mastermind groups. This is not necessarily one-on-one coaching. It could be group mentoring or coaching. And so for 20 years, I have invested $25,000 per year belonging to a mastermind group with Dan Sullivan as my coach. He's one of the world's top entrepreneurial coaches. He has coached over 6,000 of the world's top entrepreneurs. Now, when you do the math, I've invested over $500,000, not only being coached, but also with additional programs, it's probably more like $1 million. I have received well over a 10 times return on that investment. Another group that I belong to 2 and 3 different times for 2 and 3 year periods is the Genius Network, and that's headed up by Joe Polish. And he is the #1 connector on the planet, really. He can connect you with almost anybody, and he brings together people. He's a marketing genius, but his expertise is understanding what you do and connecting you with other brilliant people like Richard Branson or Arianna Huffington of the Huffington Post or Steve Forbes, who I've met all of them because I belong to this mastermind group. That's also $25,000. You have to pay $25,000 just to be in their room, to be part of that group. This is a serious group. And if you can't prove that you don't 10 times your investment by being in there, within a year, you're not allowed back in the room again, because they don't want you just taking up a seat. They want you to implement. They want you to grow by 10 times the investment you paid to be in that room. The first year in the Genius Network, I invested $25,000 and I turned that into a $1.2 million with one idea. So it wasn't a cost, it was an investment, and I got a great return on that. Dr. Robert Cooper, one of my favorite coaches, I invested $75,000 in 1 year to go and meet with him on a quarterly basis with 11 others. This is a small group of 12, and we learned some things. I will share with you 3 things that I invested $75,000 to learn, and I got probably a 20 times return on my investment within the first year implementing those ideas. Was that a good ROI? You bet it was. Peter Diamandis, another one. I've invested 10 grand many times to go to his annual Abundance 360 event. And every time I come away with the latest and greatest in technology and staying ahead of the curve and so forth, and knowing what to do to be able to help my clients and customers with the latest technology, to be on the cutting edge. I have also invested in mentors for speaking, for writing, for creating like this YouTube channel, like Nate Woodbury. So see, it's not a cost. I invest in coaches and mentors to help me 10 times my practice or more. In fact, unless I can see that I will at least 10 times my investment, then I don't choose to go there, because I have so many opportunities. I only pick the ones that I can really understand. Yep, if I did that, here's how I could 10 times my investment by doing it. So see, it's not a cost, it's an investment. So let me give you a couple of the ideas that I have gleaned from coaches so that you can get an idea, and then I would encourage you consider getting a professional coach so you can 10 times your practice in less than 60 months. So other types of groups that you may have heard of might be Vistage. That's where business owners come together in a mastermind group. There is CEO Space. There's all kinds of different organizations that are out there, but you can also hire a one-on-one professional coach. And you can start at a lower level, where I paid my first coach years ago, about $2,000 a month. That does equal about $24,000 a year. But it's worth it if you can't afford to shell out an entire $25,000 all up front, like maybe a strategic coach or the Genius Network requires of you. But let me give you a few examples of some of the things I've learned. With Dan Sullivan, for example, I have learned so many principles from him, but I remember he taught me to sit down with clients and do the R factor question, which is a relationship. If we were sitting here, Mr. Jones, 3 years from today, looking back over that 3 years to today, what has to have happened in your life, both financially and physically and spiritually and every aspect of your life? What has to have happened for you to be happy with the progress you made? Now, people just open up and tell you all kinds of things, and then all I did was solve their DOS. See, Dan taught me DOS. D is dangers, O is opportunities, S is strengths. So what are the greatest dangers, roadblocks, hindrances, barriers that would prevent you from achieving that goal? And we would identify the top 3, and then I would proceed to help them eliminate those dangers. What are the greatest opportunities that you need to seize in order to make sure that comes to fruition? And we would list the top 3 opportunities. And then what are the greatest strengths that you need to harness to make sure that that comes to fruition? Dangers, opportunities, and strengths. And so financially, for years, I've helped people eliminate the dangers of taxes, inflation, and market volatility, which is what causes most people to outlive their money. So I applied DOS to my financial clients. The opportunities, well, why don't you convert to tax-free vehicles? Why don't you have inflation work for you instead of against you? And why don't you eliminate market volatility by using indexing as an opportunity where you can grow with the market but not lose when the market goes down? Bam! I had them seize the 3 greatest opportunities, which, by the way, eliminated the 3 greatest dangers. The 3 greatest strengths of my strategies were liquidity, safety, and predictable rates of return. And so that's what I used is the DOS conversation with my clients. When I went out and started teaching entrepreneurs, I would solve their DOS. You're having a hard time getting new customers? Oh, you're having a hard time competing in this tough climate that you're in, and you're in this red ocean? Here, let me show you how you can have these dangers eliminated from your orthodontic practice. Let me show you the opportunities to seize as a realtor right now. Let me show you as a mortgage loan originator how to harness the greatest strengths, and bam, 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 I would simply solve the DOS of my competitors, and my competitors became my customers, and they would pay me $6,000 to come and learn and be mentored for 3 days with these strategies. So that's an example of how just one idea from one of my coaches made me an extra $15 million selling my recipe instead of selling the cake, making my competitors my customers. Hello? Was that a good return on my investment? Let me give you one other example. Marshall Thurber, a mentor, he had a mastermind group where he called it positive deviance, okay? What's a positive deviant? Somebody who sort of thinks out of the box, those who sort of break away from the industry. It's what Dan Sullivan calls an industry transformer. And so he read my first book and says, oh, Doug, yeah, you are a positive deviant. You will affect the world for the better because you're sort of contrarian. You look at things differently than most people do as a financial advisor. And so it was Marshall Thurber who told me to read the book, A Whole New Mind by Daniel Pink. Now, if you haven't read that book, Daniel Pink simply talks about how people learn differently. Some learn more left brain, the numbers and the math and the logic. They make their decisions logically. A right brain person learns more by the way they feel, by matters of the heart instead of matters of the mind. They like to hear stories, metaphors, and examples. Well, see, the problem is a lot of left brain people think that everybody else makes decisions like they do, because they have it all figured out. And you wouldn't believe how many doctors, dentists, and so forth who thought that when a mother came in with their teenager to see if they should have braces or oral surgery or something, the orthodontist, because maybe he or she made their decisions logically, thought everybody did that. And so they'd say, well, hello, I mean, you pay this much money and your daughter will have a beautiful smile and straight teeth and so forth. But see, half of the people, maybe even more, they made their decisions more by the way they felt, with a story or an example. And when I taught them that you must teach using right brain, left brain, in other words, high concepts coupled with high touch. I mean, really? People actually make decisions based upon that? As soon as they did that, I had a doctor who his patients all of a sudden doubled because he was turning away, he was turning off the right brain people that came in. Same thing with an orthodontist, I taught this too. And so by using concepts like that, I learned as a financial strategist, for example, that a lot of people made their decisions more with the numbers, the math, and the logic. So in my most recent book, The Laser Fund, I have one book which is this side, 200 pages, 14 chapters with all the charts and graphs for the left brain people. These are high concepts. But see, a lot of people make their decisions more with the stories and examples. So I designed it so you flip this book over, and here's another book. It's 100 pages, 12 chapters with 62 chicken soup for the financial soul stories. And you wouldn't believe how many times I deliver this to a couple, and one of them will read this side, the other one will read this side, and they both get it, and our clientele increased dramatically because we began teaching high concepts coupled with high touch. And so it's ideas like that that I would have never thought of if I didn't have a professional coach. That's why most of my books have right brain titles and left brain subtitles. And so it's very powerful, and I think it's one of the keys why I have had several best-selling books. So hopefully this is helping you understand the power and the investment behind having a professional coach or even a group mentoring type of an environment with a mastermind group.